Muito obrigada, Sr. Secretário de Estado, por estas palavras e por estes desafios. No que depender de nós, se me permite, de certeza que vai ser um dia muito animado e ainda que com uma ponderação na reflexão, vai ser um dia de certeza animado, porque se nós não nos divertirmos nada da nossa vida, tem muita piada. Vamos então começar com a reflexão. Momentos divertidos, mas refletivos também. É com muito gosto que damos as boas-vindas à nossa Keynote Speaker, Audrey. Plonk. É uma das duas diretoras adjuntas da Direção de Ciência, Tecnologia e Inovação da OCDE. Lidera o trabalho desta organização em matéria de política digital, abrangendo áreas como a inteligência artificial, os fluxos de dados, as tecnologias emergentes, a segurança online e a conectividade. Tem uma vasta experiência tanto na OCDE como no setor privado, incluindo mais de uma década na Intel. Tem desempenhado um papel fundamental na definição de políticas digitais a nível global, promovendo o diálogo internacional e lançando iniciativas pioneiras. Por favor, peço-vos que dê as boas-vindas a Audrey Plonk. Please join me.
Good morning, everyone. It's a great pleasure to be with you here. I'm glad the picture's gone. It makes me feel a little better. And to the State Secretary and to the Chair of the Board of Directors and to all of you distinguished guests, thank you very much for having me. I'm here to share some reflections on the relationship between innovation and AI governance, based on the long-standing expertise we have at the OECD, which I've been fortunate enough to be part of for the last 6 years. And I don't speak Portuguese, and I apologize that I will be one of your English speakers today, but I understood enough to hear that they mentioned that I had been in the private sector at Intel for a long time. That came through in Portuguese, even for a non-Portuguese speaker. So while I've been at the OECD for 6 years, I've had a long career in working in technology, in development, and in international multilateral contexts. So again, let me first start by thanking the chair of the board of ANACOM for her remarks, which were extremely well taken and set the stage very well for what I'm going to say, as well as the state secretary. There are many things and many interesting things happening here in Portugal. I'm going to zoom out a bit and talk to you about what's happening at a more global scale. But the OECD's purpose is also to help you zoom in on what's happening in economies that are members of the OECD, of which, of course, Portugal is. And so I hope that this will be the beginning of a conversation between Portugal and the OECD about how we can help the pillars that the State Secretary just discussed, help you implement those in the exciting and dynamic environment you have here in Portugal. So it's not surprising that it's a timely discussion. AI is advancing very rapidly. You don't need me to tell you that. The immense promise is there: scientific discovery, health outcomes, but also a lot of concern, which we heard already, around labor market disruptions, privacy, data protection, lack of transparency in how these systems are used and decisions are made. And so I think in some ways public policy has struggled to keep up. In other ways, it has really risen to the challenge. In reality, public policy always struggles to keep up with technological innovation. And so our job is to help policymakers do that. And so what we see in the AI space, unsurprisingly, is that the debate around AI governance in particular is intensifying. And while there's broad agreement about the need to foster innovation and mitigate risks, we have diverging views around the world about how to do that. Some fear that regulation will stifle innovation and that this technology is too nascent to regulate, and we need to just sort of let it bloom. And others think that the gravity of risks and the potential for harm is such that we need to regulate. And I feel that this sort of binary system of debate is really, it misses a lot of nuance that we need to focus on as a global community, thinking about how to build this technology and use this technology in the way that's going to most benefit our economies and our societies. I want to say that AI is different in two important ways from other technological developments, and a lot has been written, and a lot of really smart people have analogized AI to different technological revolutions, and some of those make sense, others maybe make less sense. But I think a couple things that are different about AI. First is obviously the speed at which it's moving, and our ability to anticipate its trajectory has been challenged. And AI changes. It's meant to change. So the system as it's built, once it's deployed, it's going to change. And so that makes it very difficult for policymakers in particular to wrap their heads around how do we manage and create both enabling environments and risk management environments for something that is constantly changing. And so these characteristics, again, underscore the scale of governance challenges that we have, particularly at a multilateral level. And I'll pause for a moment and just to say that I think multilateral cooperation is more important than ever. The context, our geopolitical context is strained. We all know that, but we shouldn't step away from the multilateral context of working together, learning from each other, because there is a richness among the OECD, but more broadly, on how countries can learn from each other in their AI journeys. On the technological front, AI continues to make impressive strides. Just a few years ago, the technology was in one place, and now today, the quality of the outputs are significantly higher. These systems can increasingly build on complex multi-step tasks. They blend planning, decision-making, and execution. They can handle end-to-end customer interactions and autonomously manage workflows. And we're moving into a state of AI agents, which will also change things. So let me, because we're the OECD, I'll have to throw a bunch of data and charts at you. I hope you don't mind, because that's what gets us excited up in Paris. But the one thing that the sharp rise in capabilities of AI systems has been driven, of course, by a surge of investment and funding. So you can see between 2014 and 2024, the funding for AI firms grew nearly 520%. That's in a 10-year period. It's pretty significant, and it focused that sector on as the dominant receiver of venture capital funding in the world. Today, it attracts 44% of all venture capital worldwide, and in countries such as Israel, Canada, the United States, more than half of all deals now involve AI-related firms. This exceptional flow of capital is set to further accelerate AI innovation and deployment, reinforcing its role as a transformative source. So we always follow the money. In terms of venture capital investment, it's only one component of the broader funding landscape for AI. VC is a piece, but it's a broad ecosystem. And a paper that we will publish next week will describe a new methodology to estimate AI investments across spending categories. We've used this methodology to estimate AI investments in the EU between 2015 and 2023. And just to give you a little bit of a preview of what you'll see next week, the most pronounced increase has been in software and databases, which has risen to nearly 40 billion euros, reflecting a boom in software development, cloud-based AI models, and large-scale data resources that underpin the systems that we're using today. A second striking development that you'll see in our release next week is the surge in telecommunications equipment. That's probably very relevant to many of you today, signaling a strong push to expand the infrastructure needed to deploy AI at scale. And I think the deployment piece and the adoption piece tied to the productivity piece that you heard from the previous speakers is something that the relationship is we're trying to unpack that relationship and understand it better from an empirical perspective. But we know that the opportunity is important, and particularly for countries like Portugal, smaller countries, many OECD member countries, that deployment and adoption, what we call diffusion in economic terms, is what is going to keep our economies competitive. Investments in computer hardware have also risen rapidly, driven by demand for GPUs. When I was at Intel 15 years ago, I never thought that it would be front page of every major newspaper almost on a daily basis, people talking about semiconductors. But now here we are, and it's what everyone's reading on the front page. So. But the demand for GPUs, TPUs, and other specialized processors for AI has obviously increased, and we expect will continue. Of course, the regulatory landscape around that technology or those fundamental hardware components are moving and changing almost daily. By contrast, R&D spending, which is still a core pillar of all technological innovation, but not the least of which is AI, has grown more modestly and relative to the infrastructure and the software. So that gives us a little pause, and we want to think about that and flag it for governments, because R&D investment is critical and has been to every major transformation in the technology space and beyond. And training expenditure, while increasing, remains the smallest category in absolute terms. So moving on, oh, you can actually see it because the screen's so big. Sometimes when you're at the OECD, we have these little screens, and it's hard to read the thing. But you have such a beautiful setup here. So with the increase of AI capabilities, we're starting to see that AI is permeating sectors, and that's a good sign in terms of productivity gains and economic growth. In a joint study with the Commission, the European Commission, that we will publish soon, we have reviewed the AI national strategies and policy initiatives of EU member states in order to support their development of the uptake of AI systems. The study has also examined initiatives to promote AI adoption in the public sector. The State Secretary mentioned a report that the OECD released yesterday specific to the public sector. The work that we've been doing with the Commission for the last 18 months to review national strategies of all EU member states has a piece on the public sector, but also looks at healthcare, agriculture, food production, mobility, climate, and the environment. And these areas emerge as priorities across member states. So just a brief snapshot. Again, there's a lot that's going to be coming out from the OECD in the upcoming weeks and months, but 24 member states have reported initiatives to support AI use in the public sector. 15 highlighted projects in energy efficiency, emissions reductions, and waste management. 17 reported initiatives in mobility, ranging from traffic optimization to autonomous vehicles. And 2/3 reported initiatives in agriculture and food production, particularly in precision farming. And of course, there's a lot going on in healthcare, and I'll stop there on the healthcare front because we don't have time to dig into it deeply. But fast development on the technological frontier and growing deployment are accompanied by market increase in AI uptake by people. In terms of the data we have in the United States, survey estimates suggest that by late 2024, roughly 40% of the population between 18 and 64, I know it's a big cohort, it's a lot of people, were using generative AI. So we also see at an individual level, people are using this technology. Moving on, compared to individual adoption rate, usage by AI firms is modest, and this is something that we have lots of different ways of looking at the OECD. I won't get into all the different ways, but we're really interested, in addition to what individuals are doing, what firms are doing. And so it's increasing, but it's still modest. The latest data show that from 2023 to 2024, the share of businesses with 10 employees or more using AI rose by 58%. It's pretty impressive. Despite the sharp increase in a very short period, it still trails behind more established technologies. This is probably very expected, but we see, cloud computing is used more than AI. It's reached over 50% of firms across the OECD membership as of 2024. So that's all to say that AI adoption has a long way to go. We see also that the distribution of adoption in firms is uneven. Again, this is probably not surprising, but firm size is a predictor and an indicator of AI adoption. In 2024, 45% of firms in the ICT sector and 26% in professional and scientific activities were using AI. By contrast, adoption in sectors like construction stood at like 7%. So a big gap. And in accommodation, sectors like accommodation, food services, more like 8%. A similar divide emerges if you look at firm size. So you can look at sector and then you look at size. About 40% of large firms of 250 or more employees report using AI in 2024, compared with only 20% of medium-sized firms and 12% of small and medium firms, which we define to be between 10 and 50 employees. So Governments are increasingly, at least our membership and our outreach, recognize that the diffusion of AI across firms is a driver of innovation and productivity. You've heard it this morning. And as a result, we're trying to help them shape policies to not only ensure the safetiness and trustworthiness of AI systems to help adoption, because I do think trust underpins, the chair of the board of ANACOM said it very well in her remarks, that trust underpins people's ability to use this technology, and that also goes for firms, but also to tackle the barriers to adoption, which we know are skills, infrastructure gaps, and access to finance. So it's not surprising, given all these trends and where we are today in September of 2025, that governments have started responding to these developments in AI with national strategies, adapting existing laws, and creating new rules to help both encourage and govern this technology. I wanted to share with you the OECD AI Policy Navigator, which has actually existed for many years now. It's one of the first things we started building back in 2018 when we started to predict that AI was going to have a big breakthrough. This database captures the scale and diversity of the policy response across more than 70, or now it's 80 jurisdictions. It keeps rising every day, so it's exciting to see. We have more than 1,300 policy initiatives across these jurisdictions and organizations, and they follow a variety of approaches. So the purpose of this is to give you access and an understanding of what these jurisdictions are doing in terms of AI. So, and there's a lot of diversity in how countries are dealing with this. So we know, we've talked about the AI Act in the EU. It's a comprehensive risk-based approach. It's a regulatory framework with detailed obligations for high-risk AI systems and certain prohibited uses applicable in all EU member states. So it's an omnibus, what we would call omnibus, framework law, but it applies to a very narrow set of AI systems. For example, in Korea, they've adopted a horizontal AI-specific framework. It's called the Basic Act on the Development of Artificial Intelligence and the Establishment of Trust. It's probably shorter in Korean, but in English, that's how it translates. It's also a risk-based approach, but combines risk management provisions with measures to foster AI development. In Japan, it has opted as a country for a more co-regulation, self-regulation approach. It has a long name for its act too, but it's called the Act on the Promotion of Research, Development, and Utilization of AI-related Technologies. And then we see Israel, for example, taking a very sector-specific approach. We obviously know in the United States, the AI action plan that came out back in July has a more innovation-led approach. So the debate is rich, and I think it's important that we don't lose sight of the nuance that has to exist. It's not really whether countries adopt a particular style of governance or regulation. Regulation itself can take many different shapes and forms. It's about how countries adopt a system that's going to work within their own environment and in their own existing legal framework and construct. So I guess just stepping back from those few examples of some of what countries across Asia, Europe, and North America are doing, what does it tell us about the diversity of governance today in AI? We know that countries on the one hand are paying close attention to risk and opportunity, and at the same time, diverging national approaches risk leading to regulatory fragmentation if we pursue that regulation in silos. The patchy development of AI governance is likely to increase compliance costs for companies. We've seen this across other areas such as privacy or data security, and potentially hinder cross-border uptake, deployment, and slow innovation. A fragmented regulatory landscape can also undermine the safety and trustworthiness of systems by creating uneven protections and gaps in oversight. So this brings into sharp relief the importance of promoting alignment among frameworks. I don't say harmonization, it's not a copy-paste, but alignment. I don't mean that everybody is going to do everything the same way all the time, or that that's even a desirable outcome. We have or sovereign countries with national interests, but alignment at a global level can help facilitate business growth and economic well-being, and these are important, and it's an important role that the OECD plays in helping to find places where we can bring that alignment and can contribute to a more coherent international landscape on AI policy. So just to say that we started this journey a long time ago. The OECD AI principles were adopted in 2019, but in order for anyone who works in the multilateral space, you know that in order to have something adopted in 2019, you started working on it a couple years earlier. So we've been working on it for a long time, and I think it's many of the principles you see here today, like the values-based principles on the left-hand side, they're not anything that you would not expect to see in 2025 today, but in 2017, when we started this discussion, it was a new discussion among policymakers. And so it's important to put in context the degree to which these early discussions have helped shape some alignment in the global space. The recommendations for national policies on the right-hand side look at things like investment, fostering an ecosystem and whatnot. And I'll say in a minute what we're doing to try to map and measure countries' progress against those policy initiatives, because that's, I guess, one of our big raison d'etre at the OECD is to be able to show at a cross-country comparable level, at an international level, how countries are doing in different domains. And so the principles provide us a foundation upon which to do that, because it's common across the OECD membership, but not just. We have 49 adherents, and the OECD membership, in case you don't know, is 38 countries, but we have 49 total that have adhered to these principles. And so as a global standard setter, we're trying to also harmonize, not just within our membership, but within a broader community of countries working together on AI. I'll just take the moment to say that one of, I think, our important successes that we're proud of, and so I like to talk about it if I'm given the opportunity, is the very definition of an AI system. This is something we defined back in 2019 in the original principles, and with all the changes in AI, we went through a process in 2023 to discuss how the technology had changed. So we adopted a new definition just in time under the leadership of Spain and under the AI Act negotiations for the definition to be adopted by the EU AI Act, as well as by the convention at the Council of Europe. So you can see that a lot of our efforts, we're a fairly technical organization relative to some other international bodies, but our objective is really to try to bring experts together and to define things in a way that others can use, so that we can be sort of comparing apples to apples, talking or singing, as we say, from the same song book. One of the ways that we've done that is going from the high-level principles to putting tools in the hands of policymakers on, for example, how to classify an AI system. Systems are complicated, they're opaque, policymakers are not experts, and so we try to break that down. So this is an example of a tool that we developed actually many years ago in a big public way to help policymakers understand what is a system, and what's behind this classification system, which is not here on the slide, but you can easily find on the observatory, is a system that breaks down these components to help policymakers understand what a system is doing, what its outputs are, to inform governance decisions. So is it a high risk, is it low risk, where does it sit in that? So these are tools you can sort of get a sense of where we're going. At the beginning of this year, we also launched a common framework for AI incident reporting to promote consistency in how countries keep track of incidents, of AI incidents. The idea is that this framework will help policymakers document incidents across diverse contexts, identify high-risk systems, track emerging risks, and assess the impact of AI on people and the planet, while allowing them to tailor responses to their own policy and legal frameworks, which is incredibly important. This is also meant to facilitate information sharing across jurisdictions. I think for those in the regulatory space, it's sort of an ANACOM event. I think there's many examples in the past from telecom to privacy to security where we wish we had better common language to share information across jurisdictions. There's a lot that the OECD does on cross-border regulatory enforcement cooperation in different domains, and it's with that view in mind that we're trying to get ahead of what the AI Act and what others are going to do in terms of incidents, and we know that there's going to be tracking of incidents related to AI. It's going to be a requirement. And so we're trying to help you, the private sector, and others using the systems harmonize and talk about incidents and what we call hazards in the same way, ultimately so that we can zoom out, because it's a global technology. We want to be able to zoom out from what's happening in a particular jurisdiction and say, okay, there's high risk in this kind of deployment no matter where you are in the world. And so we can adapt and respond to that in an appropriate way. Building the evidence base, again, it's moving good. It's supposed to move. You just never know if it's going to move or not. So this is our bread and butter at the OECD. It's what we do. It's, we're sort of all about evidence-based policy making. And the OECD AI Observatory, which you see some snapshots here on the slide, is a source of many of the data points that I've provided for you today. And overall, it's really designed in hopefully a user-friendly way. We've worked on it since I've been at the OECD to put real-time or near real-time information in the hands of policymakers about what's happening in AI. And so it's different than a retrospective look about, a GDP or whatnot in the past, and we do that work and it's important, but we're also trying to show you more real-time where investment's going, where skills demands are happening, where research is happening, where cooperation is happening, so that we can help you adapt in a more agile way, which is necessary in this context. And so this is an example. I talked about the incidents framework. We have a monitor that's more in a beta format that's scraping news and classifying incidents related to AI systems relative to that framework. And so you can see, this is not surprising given that AI is new. We expect there to be issues with it, but the point is that we start to track things early enough that over time we can start to see trends, and that is unique. And I want to also say that we're not, despite some of the challenges in the global multilateral cooperation space, we're not giving up on holding companies accountable to how they manage risks. I'm running out of time and I've talked too long, but I just want to flag that we have something, we participated and worked with the G7 on something called the Hiroshima AI Process Reporting Framework. Basically, the G7 adopted a code of conduct for system developers, and we translated that code of conduct into a voluntary reporting framework where companies can report their risk management and governance efforts relative to their AI models and systems in a harmonized way. I'm happy. We launched this in February at the AI Action Summit in Paris, and I'm happy to say that we've had a huge outpouring of support from the private sector globally. We've got companies from all over the world using this, governments implementing these requirements into their national frameworks, and it's an effort in transparency and shared learning, both with governments and policymakers, but also with each other in terms of private sector companies. It's all on the website. You can go download all the big companies' reports, small companies, Japanese companies, Israeli companies, Romanian companies, reporting on what they do in this context. So if any Portuguese companies are interested in participating, I would invite you. And then we have at the OECD something called the Global Partnership on AI, which is our effort to bring together a broader global community on AI of policymakers beyond our membership. The Global Partnership on AI existed for a while, but we merged together with the OECD last July, I guess, so it's been a little more than a year, and I think what's interesting here is that there is a space for evidence-based policymaking discussions beyond the 38 of the OECD. We know that we're an important 38, but we're not the whole global economy, so it's really important that that outreach be there, and that's what the Global Partnership on AI provides us. And so With that, I just want to say that the rapid pace is so important to our ability to govern this technology, and it's really only through cooperation, collaboration, shared experiences, shared information, common approaches that we're going to advance in our both development and use of this technology in a responsible, human-centric way. Whatever specific governance mechanisms countries choose, you have to stay abreast of the technological developments, understand the risks and the opportunities and all the complexity that comes around that. And so we're sympathetic to what countries are going through, what policymakers are going through today, to try to advance that. Our objective is to help you do that in any way we can. Feedback on what we can do to help you do that beyond what we are doing is always welcome. I think the regulation and the policy environment rooted in shared values, shared objectives, apples to apples comparisons as much as possible, and then empirical work to try to unpack the relationship between this amazing technology, its risks, but also its productivity and innovation benefits. We know that economies that adopt this and use this technology in a responsible way are going to thrive, and how to unlock those benefits is our primary objective. And this event and events like it will help drive meaningful progress. Again, I'm sorry that I'm not a Portuguese speaker, but I hope that I didn't speak too fast, which sometimes I do. But I look forward, and I'm sorry, thank you to the translators, because everybody always forgets to thank the translators, but thank you for translating, and I look forward to the fruitful discussions today. You can go to OECD.ai. I'm easy to find in the world, but if you have questions or comments, you can certainly email me or my team, and we'd be happy to connect. So thank you again so much for having me. It's been a great pleasure to be back in Lisbon.